These next couple of episodes are not very consistent besides the initiative plot and the Falcon who brings all the pieces of the puzzle together. But I like most elements in it. So if they stand for itself, these episodes are really cool for me. First of all, the takedown of Falcon and new teamwork scenes with Nolan and Emily in this episode. Then the masquerade ball in the next episode, and of course the problem of Emily's ménage à trois with Daniel and Aiden. And since we got two parties in the next episodes, we get to see fabulous fashion again. So everything I and most of the audience enjoyed in season 1 is back. Takedowns with backstabbing, Emily working together as a team, scenes for Demily and Emily fans, and new fashion highlights. So with no further ado, jump right into the Falcon plot. I know this season's is cramped full with new players and storylines. So they had to bring all parts together very fast. But I was sad that the foster brother plot only took 2 episodes. And the flashbacks were really disappointing to the point of being ridiculous. I can understand that they wanted to make clear Amanda got different stages of awareness. Remember in the first flashback episode from season 1 we learned that she did not know about the conspiracy until Nolan gave her the Infinity box. And she finally read all the journals of her father. But here in this scene they overdoing it with the hate little Amanda has developed for her father. And seeing little Amanda crossing the face of her father out with the red Sharpie. Again, this indicates that Amanda has some kind of psychosis. Even worse, a psychosis that has been going on since earliest childhood. And this premise is really disturbing for me cause it devaluates all of Emily's efforts to exonerate her father. Sometimes I think the writers do not know what they want to make their heroine look like. Should she be an evil criminal like Fomanda with disturbing mental health issues? Like in Dexter, where we can pursue the life and personal thoughts of a serial killer. Or is Emily aka Amanda a victim that tries to fight back and takes into consideration hurting people in any kind to get payback? And I really like those flashbacks with her foster brother Eli. I do. But in some kind it undermines the strong childhood relationship little Amanda had with Jack. Even more as they now are that much estranged because of Emily's lies. But I am torn with this. I love the idea of this childhood crush with Emily and Jack. Even though I never bought this strong bond. Maybe because I do not have such a strong bond with people from my early childhood days since I moved a lot in my youth. Anyway, on the other hand, they had a real good opportunity here to explore another important friendship and relationship of Amanda's youth. We all have people that influenced us on our way to adolescence. Wish the flashbacks and the scenes with Eli in the presence they could have really made something here to establish someone as a surrogate for Fomanda. And it would have been interesting since he is male and has no romantic interest in Emily. I know he would have been a competitor for Nolan again. But since Nolan had his handful with Padme, this could have been a nice side plot for a couple of episodes. And in season 3 Emily and Nolan are already moving closer together again. What I really disliked about Eli's and Amanda's plot was the ridiculous foster mom from hell and all the cliches. All of her foster brothers and sisters ended up as criminals, and you can say the same of Emily and Fomanda. And the flashbacks in which her foster mother locks Amanda into this coal cellar was really bad. It felt not only like a whole different show but a whole different plot element from a fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm. It was just too much and too many outworn cliches in this. And the scene in which Eli exposes their foster mother. We get to that later, but it would have been far more emotional if we had actually seen some flashbacks of the foster kids. They could have been some of Ellis and Amanda's foster siblings. So that we could have an emotional connection to these kids. It was a nice idea and I know what the writers were trying to do. But again the execution of it was not quite that perfect. One thing about Daniel framing Aiden. I know why he has to do this and his parents push Daniel into this direction. But why is the so powerful initiative not involved or aware of this? It is just beneath them and they do not give a damn if Daniel or Aiden is to blame. Like we should have believed Gordon Murphy in season 1 when he told Emily that Conrad was the one the initiative chose to take the fall. And what was the story behind that? Did Conrad become too powerful? And they wanted to get rid of him because he knew too much? Anyway, I cannot see why the initiative seems to be either not aware or okay with the scheme of the Graysons. We had all those scenes in which Helen and Trask were threatening the Graysons but yet they did little to make the threat sting. And now they seem to have disappeared again into thin air. I mean, I was happy that this plot got buried for a while. But their behavior and actions make absolute no sense to me. And in this episode it is even Victoria who is using the threat of the initiative to separate Daniel and Emily again. 'Cause after meeting Emily he gets a picture of them both with 2 bullets. Of course Daniel thinks that Emily has become one of the targets of the initiative and that she is in danger because of him. So even Victoria seems not that much impressed and afraid of the initiative anymore. This brings me to another thing I enjoyed more than ever. The war between Emily and Victoria is on again. Especially in the next episode but also in this, with Victoria trying again to get Emily out of her son's and the Graysons' life in general. It is just so entertaining to watch these 2 women hate each other. Even how Victoria says Emily in this scene. Just so funny. And again I love those morning meetings at the breakfast table. Now watching this again I must admit I did not recall that they had so much scenes like this in the show. They must have interspersed it very well. 'Cause I have watched the shows multiple times and did not notice a big amount of breakfast table scenes. About Padme and Nolan. Convenient to let her be in hiding for safety reasons in order to get the plot with Formunder's fate and Amanda's foster brother settled. I must admit I did not miss her and it is a shame that they did not get more out of this blackmail plot with her father. I am not at all emotional involved watching this even though a man's life is at stake and this hits home with Amanda's horror story. Maybe because we have seen the fake video of Aiden's sister Colleen and you have in mind that he could be already dead. About Eli, Emily and Meredith Hayward, the foster mom, I really like this takedown. Especially that it was not Emily's idea. 'Cause it really expands the people she could wipe out with the red Sharpie. Though I am happy they did not jump at the opportunity to let Emily take revenge on everyone who had treated her badly. But it was nice to see again that someone else is out for revenge. And even better that it was her foster brother. Shows that Emily is not alone in this and he proved that she could trust him. About the letters, I really like how he wants to help her and make an emotional plea. Colin's Penny is really good and persuasive in this. Made me want him to stick around even more. Anyway, they forego again a great opportunity here with introducing these letters. Like Emily, I would have done anything to know what David wrote in these letters to little Amanda. I know the focus are the diaries and it is kind of repetitious. But if you think of the significance since he did not made that infinity box yet, the letters would have changed Amanda's attitude towards the crimes her father seemingly did commit. Maybe the house of cards would have crumbled down earlier. Anyway, trying to get those letters back is just such a nice gesture. And I really hate that after this emotional bonding scene with the 2 they try to make us believe Eli is betraying Emily again just for the effect. However, I adored her last sentence, "Fine, we do it my way." Still gives me the shivers and it makes you looking forward to the next takedown. about Aiden and Nolan working together to save Padma. As much as I enjoyed the two teaming up, I knew that something would go terribly wrong when Emily was not involved. But I expected her to come in and save them at the last moment. Since we lost Fomander only a couple episodes ago, I really did not think that we would see another death so early. They really raised the stakes in this and even more in the next season. And of course I was sorry for Nolan losing Padma like this. Bad enough that he had to face being separated of her for a long time in this scene in which Aiden breaks it to him in this really not sensible way. I know her character very much like Emily's mother at the beginning of the season was probably only introduced as a big loss for Nolan. But that makes it nonetheless sad and cruel to watch how her storyline ended. For me, this scene where Nolan is saying goodbye and already planning their reunion like in the worst dime novel is still the best scene of those two. About Jack and Emily in this episode. I really do not like his passive-aggressive ways with Emily. If they both had been honest to each other in these episodes after Fomander's death, they could have spared each other much trouble and pain. It hurts to see Emily's inner conflict cause she knows in her heart she has to tell him the truth but is too afraid to lose him forever when she does. A word about Emily's look in this episode. I like the continuity here. Emily is again dressed like a real socialite, with business blazer and neat shift dresses. I love this look with the white coat and those matching pearl earrings and pearl necklace. And again those sunglasses that make Emily hide her eyes so her smile seems even more unnatural and big. And Meredith Hayward really looks that innocent and like a typical person who lives for the good cause. In a way that seems to be a disguise too, since as she is talking with Victoria she is all suit up and wears very different clothes. Even though I did not enjoy the cruel flashbacks, I love to see how Emily is searching for proofs of her treatment, as if she wants to rediscover them and get evidence that this actually happened to her. What I still do not like that they put more weight and trauma into Amanda's childhood with this. Was it not enough that she learned her mother tries to drown her? And we already had a story in which she was locked up by one of her first targets, Michelle Banks, who brainwashed her into believing her father was guilty in the first place and separated them for good. So why have a new trauma and a new woman who was supposed to help her and keep her safe be traumatizing and misuse her? In Season 2, with the backstory of Aiden and Takeda on top, it feels as if everyone Amanda ever met and put her faith and trust into had betrayed her. That is a bit too much, I think, cause they had to be people on her way of becoming Emily Thorne who also helped her like Fomander and Nolan. Maybe they could have focused more on that with Eli and the other foster siblings who surely would have stick together against their foster mom. Another thing I enjoy story-wise by Finding the Cellar. This can not only be proof of how Amanda and her foster siblings were treated. The fact that it is still there hidden behind a rack on wheels may be an indicator that this treatment goes on till now. So the whole plot gets a strong social and political background. I like that very much, cause Emily's targets were the best when we had a strong emotional connection like with Uncle Bill and Michelle Banks, or a really bad and abusive behavior like with Judge Barnes earlier this season. About fashion again. I like that we have a new red dress that is very different from the other ones for this takedown. And it is nice to see that Victoria and Meredith are wearing the same color. A subtle hint at Victoria being in some ways as bad as Meredith. Since as a mom she is mistreating and abusing her daughter Charlotte during the show several times and has a bad influence on both of her children. And as we see later with Meredith, there is another parallel between these two women. The former foster children will stand up against Meredith and not only Amanda and Eli. And as Emily points out in the finale, both of her children Daniel and Charlotte will nothing to do with Victoria by the end of the season. Now about the red dress. This one is not my favorite, but it suits the occasion. Since it is daytime and we have a press conference, a shift dress had to be the perfect choice. And I like that Emily is wearing her hair with this little braid this season. Makes her hair look more elegant with not that much effort. Speaking of fashion, a word on Ashley's new leather look. It is interesting how her style changes from episode to episode this hard. In the last episode she wore that really elegant pink dress. And now black leather and a blood red lipstick. She looks like she wants to go in a biker bar, not working for a politician. I like fashion experiments, but I think with this they got too far. About Emily and Daniel eating together. I like how nervous he is. Watching this I get to see and enjoy what a good actor Joshua Bowman actually is. Maybe because in his core character story he does not change that much, but he is in fact really good when he plays this lovable and innocent guy who is in trouble just because of who he is and who are his parents. What was really annoying is that again, because she is meeting Daniel, she cannot be there to help Nolan. I know it is all due to the plot, but that still makes me angry. Cause the outcome of this mission with Padma would surely have been different if Emily had been more involved in the planning and execution of this. Though I like Nolan's reluctance of killing people and Aiden being so nonchalant about it. In the long run this not only showed us how different Aiden sees, thinks and how flexible his moral standards can be. It shows Nolan's development as well. Cause spoiler alert, after Aiden's death in Season 3 and later in Season 4 he is finally okay with Emily murdering Victoria. Only Jack can persuade him that it would be something of which Emily could possibly not recover. And he also seemed not to have shared a tear about Conrad's death. I know in the end it was Nolan who blew up everything because he withheld Aiden from shooting. But he was right that they could not pull this off without Emily. Cause if she had been there as backup she could either be on the street with Padma to make sure that she did not get kidnapped. Or she had been on the roof with Nolan and Aiden and could have shoot at least Trask or someone else to take him out and give Padma the opportunity to flee. About Ellis' big moment. I liked this very much even though it was not Emily's takedown. But like with the ones of Patsy Barnes who took down her abusive husband Judge Barnes for Emily, it was good to see another victim taking action. And the twist with the truth that he lit the fire and not Amanda was perfect. First it made me angry because here was another man who betrayed Amanda and again she had to pay the price for another man's fault. But later I realized that this was a nice sentiment to how much Amanda and their friendship must have mean Eli. He wanted her not to go and leave him alone. Maybe there would have been some hidden romantic feelings, but I was glad the writers did not go for it. Cause I think a deep friendship out of the mistreatment they had to endure and face together was strong enough for this story. And that his foster mom is the one who spills out the truth shows just how menace and cruel she is. Something I almost forgot. I love that this press conference with Eli revealing the bad treatment of the foster children by Meredith Hayward mirrors the revelations about the patience of Michelle Banks in Season 1. It is very fitting cause both women had worn a blue dress and had a special role in Amanda's childhood. And I love the cut between Eli and Emily. The strong performance of Collins Penny makes this scene so intriguing. His words seem to cut like a knife into Emily, who is reliving all the horrors he describes in this moment. And kudos to Eli that he was prepared for Meredith denying all his accusations by inviting former foster children who had been abused by her. That was really one of the strongest scenes of Season 2. And what Emily says to Nolan and here to Eli sounds a bit overdone. Yes, the prison experience must have been hard and it would have changed definitely something in her behavior if she missed out that prison time in UV. But the emotional mistreatment of Michelle Banks and Meredith Hayward would still have been applied onto little Amanda. She would have still experienced the traumatic loss of her father and been separated from him until he died. So she would have been less violent but not less damaged by all this. And for Fomander, okay, they would not have met in UV, but they still could have met elsewhere. Maybe in the same foster home or in a strip club where Fomander worked. Emily could have still used her for the identity swap and she could still have died because of that, so I cannot see what this fire would have changed. I think Emily has still not recovered from the loss of Fomander and cannot see clearly. But blaming Eli for everything is not helping anyone. Anyway, I like that he is so determined to help her and make things right. It is good that they end on a good note, and it would have been fun like with her mother if he had come back in the last season. At least as a guest on Amanda's wedding. It always bothered me that we got not much familiar faces within the guests. And to be fair, it should have been Eli who crosses out Hayward's face cause he was the one who planned and executed the takedown. About Nolan and Aiden again. This scene was just a cheap trick and one of the lowest parts in Revenge. Too bad that it is always Aiden who gets such bad scenes. Anyway, making us believe that Padma's head could be in that box was a big lowlight of this season for me. But I love Nolan's comment on this. The way he summons up all of Aiden's failures and again advises him to change his profession is funny and sad at the same time. About Jack and Declan. I like that the both brothers are in this together. Declan has been a big help and support for Jack in this season. I think the writers did not appreciate how much worth Declan could have if they had brought him out of Charlotte's corner. The best scenes and storylines Declan had when he was not primarily Charlotte's boyfriend. About the last scene with Mason Treadwell. I was always thrilled when this one was back. He was one of my favorite takedowns and a fan favorite, so I was happy that they managed to bring him back in every season. Here it is especially juicy that he seems to know every dirty detail of the Graysons' life that they try so desperately to hide. Though I hate that he spills them out so easily. Emily's threats and offerings are really not that great and old since she made them at the beginning of the season already. But the new revelation of Victoria being a teenage mother was something I did not expect and which was a new opportunity they finally used best, since they took the time to introduce a new thrilling character and story arc that lasted till the first half of season 3. And I like how Mason makes us looking forward to the next episode with his last sentence.
I imagine you'll exploit this fresh little morsel with your usual flair.
You can't even begin to imagine.
I must say this time he did not promise too much. The next episode had one of my favorite scenes with Victoria and Emily in this season in it.